Good morning. Welcome to category management. So what is category management? It's all about managing a spend category across the entire life cycle through design, sourcing, manufacturing, and sales. It's not just about putting similar SKUs together or similar parts together and finding the cheapest possible source. So we could find a group of purchases that you make, put them under a category manager. So for example, if you were running a plantation organization, you could put your fertilizer purchases together. If it's a grocery store or a grocery shop, fruit and veg purchases together, meat product purchases together, so on. That's how you start creating categories. Now, why do we do category management? Let's think about this. Over the longer term, category management will save you money and, possibly as importantly, enable you to better leverage your suppliers and your supplier base for innovation. So how does this happen? Think about the grocery stores. You are the fruit and vegetable buyer for a grocery chain. If you are just buying things on a procurement basis, a different buyer is probably doing it every week. And the only target is finding the lowest price available with the reasonable amount of quality for the fruit and veg. Now, if you have a category manager in there who's really looking at the category, they will start seeing things like, oh, there are increased purchases of organic fruit or organic vegetables. Therefore, I need to start finding more sources for them, and I need to start buying more of that. So this is the type of knowledge and analysis that a true category manager can bring in. And that was just a very simple example. So what makes a good category? A category has to be in line with the overall strategy of the company. Think about Boeing. They make airplanes. So you might say, oh, a category should be, all the wing parts should be in one category. But the overall strategy of Boeing is to outsource the entire wing. So it doesn't make any sense to have a category called wings. Okay? Similarly, there needs to be sufficient value in that category. Take office supplies. I could have a whole set of categories on writing instruments, pens, pencils, erasers, and so on. But the total value of the spend for an organization on all those writing instruments is so small that it's not worth putting a category manager to learn about the specifics of pens and pencils. On the other hand, if you added office supplies and computers and everything that's related indirectly to running the business, that could be a valuable category. The savings potential also has to be there. If it's a commodity that's purchased on the open market at a fixed market price, there's not much potential for savings. There might be some potential for innovation, but you have to look at that. And finally, there has to be synergies between the SKUs or parts that you are buying. For example, if you looked at an automobile and you said you're an automobile company, you might say, hey, let's group tires and windshield wipers together, since they both use rubber components. But it doesn't really make sense from a practical standpoint because the supply base and the suppliers for those two components are very different. I don't think there's any tire manufacturer who makes windshield wipers. So you will have to have a whole different supply base for that. The last factor that goes into making a good category is the complexity of the product that you're trying to buy or source. If it is a very complex component and there are very significant knowledge implications for that, then of course you should try to create a category for it. So again, a good category has to be in line with overall strategy. It has to have sufficient value. There needs to be savings potential. There needs to be synergies. And finally, complexity is a good indicator of necessity for a category. So we've talked about categories. So who runs this category? That person is called a category manager. And what makes a good category manager? Of course, they've got to be a good interface with the supply base. Supplier relationship and supplier relationship management becomes very important for a category manager. because they have to know not just the immediate purchase that they're making, but who they could be buying from in the future, who they should not be buying from in the future, and so on. Importantly, business and category awareness is a factor that category managers must be conscious of. They must understand supply, pricing trends, be aware of the cost drivers of the business. So, for example, if fuel is a significant portion of that category's costs, they should understand, oh, there's been a bomb attack in Saudi Arabia's oil fields, therefore prices of fuel are going up. That impacts my category prices. So all these relationships they need to be considering. They also have to have a strong analytical capability. They need to be able to look at historical trends, future projections, and things like that. Finally, a good category manager is also a good project manager, and a project manager who can lead without direct responsibility or authority. Why do I say this? The category manager in procurement must work with the design engineers, must work with the sales people to ensure that the product is right both for the market and that the sourced material is right for the design characteristic. So again, a category manager, good interface with suppliers, good category awareness, analytical capability, and a good project manager. Now, a category manager does not exist in a vacuum. The leaders of procurement and the leaders of the company, in fact, have to be conscious that category management is now a strategy for procurement and that they support it. They need to understand what are the key markets and industry opportunities for category management and sourcing. The leaders need to have expectations as to when will I see a return from category management. You will not see it the very next day you start it. It will take time because your current procurement buyers who are generalists need to start becoming specialists, or you need to go out there, hire category managers who are specialists. And they need to implement processes that will then enable the company to both save money and become a more innovative procurer. Finally, there are lots of other externalities, fuel prices, recessions that can actually change the whole dynamic of the industry and therefore impact the price that you're procuring on. Finally, the leadership is responsible for getting the commitment from the whole organization. For example, if the design engineers of the product say, hey, we just designed this and then we hand it over the wall to our compatriots in procurement and that's it for us, that doesn't work in category management. The category manager has to be able to communicate to the design engineers, hey, you have asked for this type of specification of material, but do you know that's only available from one supplier in southern Australia? Or you could use this, can you use this other material that's available across the globe in several countries, etc. So that's the value that the category manager can bring to the design engineer who doesn't understand either the price or the supply base. So, how can I become a great category manager? It takes time. You have to learn about the category. You have to understand the dynamics in the category, the cost drivers. You cannot be a great category manager for fruit and vegetable one day and steel the next year. That just doesn't happen. You can carry over a lot of the process that you've been engaged in, but you need time to build the commodity knowledge. So it's a combination of understanding both the process of category management as well as building knowledge in that particular commodity or category. Finally, I hope I've whetted your appetite to improved procurement capability through category management. And I would love if you would join us for one-day course on category management at MISI, www.misi.edu.my. Thanks and have a great day.